and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we're going to be looking at a puzzle called Palindrome Sums 2 by Teasel. I hope I'm saying Teasel correctly. I may not be. If I'm not, apologies Teasel, or whatever your name is. It's T-Z-A-E-L. Which I shall pronounce Teasel. Anyway, the interesting thing about this puzzle is, well, there are two interesting things. Firstly, it's got an incredibly high rating on Logic Masters Germany. Secondly, it is apparently extremely approachable. Genuinely so today. It's 2 stars out of 5 for difficulty. So if you've struggled with some of the puzzles that we've featured recently and you want a puzzle that is more doable, this should fit the bill. I'll read the rules in just a second. I've just got a quick thing to mention, which is basically something I'm sure many of you know already. Our Patreon channel is buzzing at the moment. So over on Patreon, which you can join for a couple of bucks a month, there's Jovial Sudoku Extravaganza, which is heading on towards 1,000 people have correctly solved that extravaganza so far, and it's 20 Sudokus. And although they're all approachable Sudokus, they're not trivial Sudokus. So this is hours and hours and hours of work that people have put in to solving that. It's quite fantastic, it really is, and it's a testament to how good those puzzles are that Jovial has managed to hold people's interest for all 20. But anyway, that's available if you're a patron of the channel over on Patreon. And whether or not you're a patron of the channel, to say thank you to all the support we've had on Patreon over the last 2 or 3 years, we have released this murder mystery Sudoku hunt. Very grateful to Alice, No Feet McGee and others from the Discord server for creating what is an incredible experience. So basically, go to Patreon, download it, and you can play the puzzles right now and try and find out who committed the crime. And those of you who have sent in entries have been marvelling at it, and it's with good reason. It is a lot of fun. So that said, let's read the rules for Palindrome Sums 2. 2 given digits today, so I'm in Clover, and the rules are as follows. Normal Sudoku rules apply. Lines are palindromes, and the digits along each line must sum to the same total. That's immediately interesting. So each of these palindromes adds to the same number. So that's going to be very restricted. A palindrome reads the same in both directions. So let's just make sure we understand what that means. So let's say this square was a 1. Oops, I'm going to go big numbers. If that's a 1, and that could be a 3, then if this was a 1 and this was a 3, we'd immediately know we'd have to go 3, 1 on the other end of the palindrome. So that if we read it starting here, it goes 1, 3, 3, 1. And if we read it from here, it should sound exactly the same and will 1, 3, 3, 1. So that's how palindromes work. The slight rinky-dink with this puzzle is that all the palindromes add up to the same number, so we're going to have to work that number out. Do have a go. The way to play, as usual, is to click the link under the video. So you just go to the video description underneath this video and you'll find a link that will take you to a page that looks very similar to this one, and you can play on whichever device takes your fancy. But now I get to play. Let's get cracking. And I can hear Maverick has taken off in the distance. Which is befitting. That seems to happen every day. Now, let me think. Well, there's one thing I can see that's immediately interesting, and that is that we have 2 2-cell palindromes in this puzzle. Now, a 2-cell palindrome, if we think about the sum of a 2-cell palindrome, this is always going to be an even number. If I put x in here, x must be on the other side of the palindrome, so it reads the same from both directions. So this always adds up to 2x and therefore is divisible, and therefore it's even. Now if it's even, or if the sum is even, that seriously, obviously, eliminates half of the possible values for the sum of all these palindromes. And what it does make me think about is whether we've got any odd length palindromes in here, and rather annoyingly, I'm not actually seeing any. Oh, I thought that one might. That one's odd. Right, here's a 3-cell palindrome. So what's this digit? It must be an even number, because we know those 2 digits are the same because they're on the palindrome. And whether these 2 digits are odd or even, the sum of them will be even. So if these 2 are even, if I make this odd, the overall palindrome would sum to an odd number and clash with the logic that's inherent in the 2-cell palindromes. So this has got to be an even number. How long is this long one? We've got the same thing here. And this is a 7-cell palindrome, so exactly the same logic. That must be even as well. In fact, that can't be a 2. Look, why don't we do Sudoku as well? Make use of the given digits. So maybe what we do now is we think about the minimum sum of this one. Actually, I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to colour in the ends of the long palindrome. So let's do that and see what that looks like. So we know now that because of the nature of a palindrome, these purple cells are the same digit, the blue cells are the same digit, and the green cells are the same digit. And we know, if we look at box 7, we know purple, blue, and green are different digits. So the minimum I could put into those 3 squares would be 1, 2, and 3, which add to 6. So the minimum these add up to is 6 as well. So the minimum these 6 cells add up to is 12. 12 add 4 is 16. Right, okay. So 12 add 4 is 16 as an absolute minimum for the long palindrome. And that means that those 2 squares have to either be 88 or 99. 88 would be 16, which could only happen if this was a 4. Actually, can this be an 8 now then? No, this can't be an 8. If that's an 8, the palindrome blows up, because you'd have a minimum of 12 in the coloured cells. 12 plus 8 is 20, and I can't make those 2 squares add up to 20 because I can't put 10 into both of them. So this is not 8, and it must be 4 or 6. I presume it can be 6. If it's 6 and we go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that would be 18. Okay, and if we stay with 4, can we get 18 to work still? We then need, oh yeah, we can, with 4 and 1, 2, 4 on each set of coloured cells. Right, well that's still interesting, because that means the coloured cells are either 1, 2, 3, or there's one possibility for them to be 1, 2, 4, and the only way they can be 1, 2, 4 is if this is a 4. Oh, and this can't be, this is gorgeous. Right, here we go. This can't be a 4. And why can't this be, no, that's nonsense. This can be a 4, but what you cannot do is put 1, 2, 4 in the triple. And that is for a very interesting reason. This 4 is ruling out a 4 from that square, which means this square cannot be a 4. So that, now think about what happens. If this is a 4, and we're trying to put 1, 2, and 4 into there, we can no longer do it, because this 4 rules the 4 out of green and blue, which rules it out there, and forces this to be 1, 2, and 3. So if you make this 4, you always have 1, 2, 3 in the coloured cells, and it always adds up to 16. And if this is 6, if this is, hang on, that's definitely not 4. If this is 6, you've always got to have 1, 2, 3 anyway, because otherwise you're going to blow the total. So there is never a 4 in the coloured cells. That is what we have managed to work out, but we still don't know whether this is 16 or 18. That's not very articulate, I know, but let me just think about this then. So how do we do this? How are we going to work out what the total is? Can we do some sort of Sudoku with the greens or the blues or the purples? I'm not sure. Can we do anything with these 2 digits? We know that we're either heading up towards 16 or 18. So if this is 2, we need 14 there, which would be double 7. 14 or 16, which would be 8. If it's 4, actually let's go the other way. If it's 8 and we're heading towards 14, oh no, this is not sensible. I'm not doing that. I'm going to end up with too many pencil marks. Oh, that's 8, 9 as well, isn't it? Well, not 8, 9. It's either 88 or 99, because that's 2. Ah, that's a good thought. This is a good thought. Now, whether these 2-cell palindromes are 8s or 9s, they're all the same digit. That's the nature of palindromes. And because they have to have the same sum, if this is 88, for example, this will have to be 88. And that might mean we can do... Oh, this is gorgeous. This is a really clever puzzle so far, actually. Because now, can that be orange? The answer is no, because it's on a palindrome and that would be orange and it would clash with this one. So where does orange go in this column? It's got to go here. Where does orange by Sudoku go in box 7? It's got to go here. So orange is in one of those two squares. Orange over here. It can't be... Oh, yeah, look, where does orange go in box 6? It can't go there, because that would reflect via the palindrome there and clash with this orange. Can't be here, so orange is there. So actually, those 3 squares there are also 8s and 9s. Which means orange is in one of those 2 squares in box 3. So we've actually learnt a lot about orange there. But what has that told us about the nature of the puzzle? That's the next question. This 2 means this can't be a 2. So that can't be a 2. So that means there's a 2 in one of those squares and a 2 in one of these squares. Which means that is not a 2. Okay, so this is 4, 6 or 8, heading towards an overall total of 16 or 18. Okay, I have to say I'm not quite seeing what that means. So these palindromes have to add up to 16 or 18, which means okay. Hang on. If we're heading towards 16, it might get quite interesting. Oh, this is clever again. Yeah. Here we go. What we've got to consider is whether the total we're heading towards is 16 or 18. If it's 16, we know what this domino adds up to, because we know the palindrome overall would add to 16, so we would know that domino must add up to 8. We'd know this domino, by the same logic, must add up to 8. Now, how are we going to do this? How are we going to fill these squares such that we don't break these squares if we have to make both of those add up to 8? We can't use 2, 6. So we're going to have to use maybe 1, 7 there and 3, 5 here. But now look, we've taken 1 and 3 as options out of this square, so both of these squares would have to be 2, and that's impossible. So that means you can't be adding up towards 8. You must be adding up towards 9. Well, which is great, because once we know it's 9, we can fill in all the oranges. We know we're looking for 9s in all the oranges. We know that this square now is a 6. We must be able to limit those 2 squares now, because we know we're heading up towards 18. So if this is 4, that's a double 7. If this is 6, we're looking at... if this is 6, we're looking at double 6 there, which is impossible. That's not 6 anymore. If it's 8, we're looking for double 5. Okay, that might be possible. And we're looking now for... now these dominoes add up to 9, but we can't use 6 and we can't use 2 in those totals. So 3, 6 and 2, 7 are not available. So these are 1, 8 and 4, 5. Which means 1 is not available there, which means, yep, purple is 1, which means now we've got a 2, 3 pair in there. I'm going to remove the 2s from those squares, remove the 2s from these squares. This 1 is telling us this is not 1, 8, so that's 4, 5. That means this is 1, 8. By Sudoku, we can put 1 on this palindrome. 1, 1 go in the grid. I could purple the ones actually, but maybe we don't need to. Let's just hold off on purpling things for the moment and try and work out. Well, if this is 1, 8, this is 1, 8. That is the logic of palindromes, of course. So we can do 4, 5 there as well. Now also, those two squares have to be double 8 in order to make this palindrome add up to the right number, because we know each sort of 2-cell sequence must add up to 9. So that's double 8. 8 comes into those two squares now. 8's got to be in one of these 3 positions. Now, whoopsie. Now, can we put 8 here? The answer is maybe. That square, 4, 5 here means that's a 7. So that's a 7, so this is a 4. And now those 3 squares are actually known, look, because we've got, well, we've got to put 5, 6 and 8 in the column. So this is 5, 6 or 8, and this square is 5, 6 or 8 as a result. And the other squares there are 3, 4 and 7. And we can't put 4 into those. So this becomes known. This 3, 7 must copy through to here. Now we can, oopsie. And now presumably we can think about the logic on these 2 dominoes. This combination, I've broken the puzzle. Oh no, I haven't. Oh, I thought I'd broken it. These 2 squares have to add up to 9. And you can only do that one way. The 7 won't work because this can't be a 2. So this has got to be 3, 3, 6, 6. That means this square's a 7. Now we know those 2 squares, they've got to be a 2, 6 pair, and we don't seem to know how that works. Those squares are 3 and 5. It sounds like there's a war going on the trampoline downstairs. Apologies if you can hear the trampoline war. Now, what does this mean? This means that we've very nearly actually finished the palindromes, haven't we? In fact, let's think about these 2 squares, or these 2 dominoes, because we know these dominoes add to 9 each, and we can't be using 3, 6 or 1, 8. So this is either 4, 5 or 2, 7. 4, 5 or 2, 7. Which I don't actually think we can do, but that does mean that the sort of edge cells in this row have to be a 3, 8 combination. And there's a 3 here. That's good. Okay, so we get an 8, we get a 3. We get an 8 here by Sudoku, which gives us the 8 and the 1, which of course feeds through the palindrome, so that gets us a few more digits. We have to put a 1 up here now. We must have done a lot of 8s. We have done a lot of 8s, but not enough 8s to actually be clear about the rest of them. All right, okay. So, what about those 2 squares? Are we going to be able to do anything there? Well, we know, yes, we are, of course. In fact, this is what disambiguates this line. This 4, 5 is really beautiful, because this cannot be 4, 5. Ergo, because it's a palindrome, that can't be 4, 5. Which means this must be 4, 5. And this is a 2, 7 pair, which makes this square a 3 and this square a 2. This is a 4, 5 pair, ooh, which looks like, oh, I see. I was suddenly worried about disambiguation of this 4, 5 seemingly deadly pattern. But actually, if we can resolve anything about these 4, 5s, it will of course resolve the deadly pattern. So we need 1s and 6s into those squares, which we can do. Which means 6 is in one of those 2 positions. And now what do we do? I think we've got every palindrome. Have I actually got every palindrome pencil marked? I think I have. So this must be very close to becoming a normal Sudoku, actually. We just have to figure out, I think, 1 or 2 more digits, and we'll probably get a cascade. 2, where does 2 go in row 9? Oh, it doesn't help. It's got to be in one of those 2 squares. The 3s and the 5s. No, 3s do not align. That's not a good thought. 3s, 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 3s. No, 3s are not good. Right, let's look at these. So this is 3, 6, and 7. Which for some reason doesn't seem to resolve. We can get rid of the 6 from this one. And no, we can't do the 8. Oh no, I'm getting stuck. This is a disaster. 2 has to be in those 2 squares. I bet you what I've done is I've resolved a palindrome and I haven't used it. that is typically what I would do in a situation like this. So let's take a stare and see where this has probably happened. This column is quite restricted as well, actually. 2, 4, 5 and 7. So this square has got to be a 4 or a 5, which means this square has to be a 2 or a 7, but that doesn't seem to resolve. Wow, okay. This column as well, because this is a 4-5 pair, is actually a lot more filled than it looks like. We need 6s, 7s and 8s. That's a naked single. Good grief. That's an 8 in the corner. It doesn't get a song for that, but that means we get an 8 and a 5 here. That might be helpful. So we still need 6s and 7s into those squares. And we got this 5 as a result of that shenanigans. So we need 1s, 2s and 9s. Oh, it's so close to resolving, actually. We need 1s, 2s and 9s into those squares. That cannot be a 1, that cannot be a 9, and that cannot be a 2. But that's still not quite good enough. At least I don't think it is. Maybe this column? Have we got anything going on there? We need 1, 5, 6 and 9. Yes, this 1, 9 is lovely, isn't it? That's got to be a 5, 6 pair. Which means there's a 6 in one of those two squares. Whoopsie, by Sudoku. And this is a 1, 9 pair up here, which still is not resolved. But it does mean this square's become a 4 and a 5. Which puts a little bit of pressure on this row where we need 1, 6, 7s and 9s. So this is 1, 6 or 7. We're heading towards a fully pencil mark grid, and that's a 6, 7 or a 9. Okay, but it's definitely still not done. Hang on, what is going on? We've got a 4, 5 pair in this column, which means that we need 2s, 3s and 7s in the other position. So this is a 2 or a 3, and this is a 2, 3 or a 7. And now I've got, somehow I've worked my way around, and I've got a 2, 3 pair in row 8, which does give me more digits. That's going to be a 6, that's going to be a 2, that's going to be a 6, and that's going to be a 5. And this 2 finally figures out the green and the blue after a very long process. But now look, we're suddenly making progress in some of these palindromes, which is probably going to be what we needed to do. That 2 and 3 are resolved by this 2 here. So that's a 2, that's a 3, that's a 4, that's a 4, that's a 5, that's a 4, that's a 5. Just unwinding the palindrome, just unwinding the palindrome, just unwinding the palindrome. Now this 3 looks nice. That's giving me a 3 and a 5. That's become a 7, that's become a 6. That's not a 6 anymore. And this box, what do we need to put in it? 5s and 6s. There's a 5 here, so we can put the 5 in, we can put the 6 in, we can put the 6 in. We've got a 3 and a 7, which is resolved. It's just collapsed. That is so peculiar. 1, 2, 9, 1, 9 and 7. And after a bit of a stumble towards the finish, I think that is how to solve a very beautiful and very clever puzzle by Teasel. Really enjoyed that. It wasn't the most difficult puzzle we've ever done, but it was certainly elegant, and it had its mischief about it, didn't it? And it was actually quite, well, it was very interesting to try and work out what the correct sum was. And these palindromes have been placed so skillfully that the logic was seriously clever. So I really enjoyed that. I look forward to reading the comments and seeing how you guys did, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.